houses happens, and books are outside waiting to sign, and all kinds of folks are willing to talk to you about how to solve all the problems I'm going to describe. A lot of work goes on behind the scenes to make all that choreography happen, so thank you very much. I feel myself tonight in the presence of heroes. Some of the people I most admire in this world are in this room tonight. If you live in the Oneonta community as either a student or a townspeople, you should know this. It's a little bit like living right next to, Martin Luther King Jr., just before the Alabama bus boycott. So there is a worldwide movement to speak out against extreme fossil fuel extraction, of which fracking is one form, the form that is happening right where people live. And so the public health consequences are grave. People die when fracking happens. And there are places across the globe in which people are standing up and saying, no, this is not the trail we want to blaze. We have something else in mind with our community. And Oneonta is one of the epicenters of that movement. And sometimes I think when you're living in a place in real time, you may not know that you're part of history. So you could have lived through, Selma, Alabama, during the whole civil rights movement and not maybe known what was the heroes all around you. But this is a place, and this is a time right now where that work is happening. And there are people here who are architects of that movement, and it's humbling for me to even speak here with these folks in the room. And if you feel like you've walked into the middle of a movie and you've heard about fracking but you don't quite know what to do, well, I have some ideas. And the folks who are staffing those tables outside tonight have some even more ideas to help you get involved. So let me start with my most recent book, Raising Elijah, which is named for, the title of the book is intended to reference an abolitionist who grew up near my hometown, Elijah Lovejoy. He lived in 1830, and he spoke out against slavery at a time when almost nobody else was doing that. In the 1830s, we had already prohibited the importation of new slaves from Africa. And the result of that sort of regulation of slavery was that we increased the value of every slave that was here. And so investing in slavery in the 1830s in our nation was a little bit like investing in real estate in the 1990s. And so people took their personal wealth and that's what they did with it. And so millions of dollars at that point were bound up in slavery. And it was thought, of course, as understood to be personal property rights issues. And even people who lived, and of course the nation was divided into slave and non-slave areas, and even people who lived in areas that were, like in Illinois, which were free states, understood that they benefited from slave labor. It kept the price of goods low, and it kept us competitive in the world market. So Elijah Lovejoy was a Presbyterian minister and a writer and an editor, and he knew all those things. But he stood up and said, in spite of the economic dependency of our nation on slavery, there was something more fundamental at stake, which is that it was a homicidal abomination, and it simply needed to end. And it needed to end now. And he wasn't interested in regulating slavery, and he wasn't interested in gradually phasing it out. He was interested in abolition now. And for that, he was assassinated by a pro-slavery mob in the free state of Illinois, and his printing press was thrown into the Mississippi River. But his best friend was president of Illinois College, and his best friend's sister was Harriet Beecher Stowe. And so at his funeral, John Brown stood up and said that he devoted his life to the abolition of slavery. And of course, if you know a little bit of American history, you'll remember that he played a big role in that story. And Harriet Beecher Stowe, of course, went to work writing Uncle Tom's Cabin, which profoundly influenced a young politician by the name of Abraham Lincoln. And so the work that Elijah Lovejoy did, even though he died at age 35, lived on, and it was one of those transformational moments in history. So Raising Elijah, the book, is about raising up the spirit of abolitionism for our time. And as I see it, we are in a time of crisis, and our nation is ruinously dependent now on fossil fuels. and it is time to declare our abolition from those things and pursue a different path. Those words sound extreme when they're applied to fossil fuels, but of course they once sounded extreme when applied to slave labor too. In other words, rather than regulating, trying to have state-of-the-art slavery, we wanted no slavery. Rather than regulating fracking and having the best possible wells, we want no wells. We want to pursue an entirely different path. So I'm trying to open up a critical space in the culture for us to have a conversation about redesigning our economy and freeing it from its own ruinous dependency, which I do see as a homicidal abomination. Now, the title of the book, Raising Elijah, has a second meaning. It's also named for my now 10-year-old son, Elijah.